After the Kherson and Kharkiv counteroffensives in late 2022, the conflict in Ukraine slowed, focusing on Bakhmut in early 2023. Russian defenses in Zaporizhzhya, described as Europe's most extensive since World War II, included 3 defensive lines, while Kherson, aimed at safeguarding Crimea and Donetsk, focused on field fortifications. By February 2023, discussions about a spring counteroffensive were underway, with Ukrainian troops receiving NATO training and anticipating Western equipment. The 2022-2023 Pentagon leaks prompted alterations in plans, but preparations continued. Delays were attributed to insufficient Western supplies, incomplete training, and adverse weather, particularly the muddy season. In the southern region of Zaporizhzhya, Ukraine pursued a dual-pronged attack, one aimed at the strategic Russian-occupied city of Melitopol in the west, and the other directed towards Berdyansk on the Azov Sea's coast in the east. Ukrainian General Alexander Tarnovsk led the southern efforts of the counteroffensive. Ukrainian forces launched counterattacks around Orikhiv on June 8, targeting the Mala-Tokmachka-Polowy defensive line, strategically significant for breaching the Russian line. Ukrainian forces broke through the first defense lines, prompting Russian forces to fall back to a second line. Subsequent counterattacks and Russian withdrawals ensued. Significant Ukrainian gains were reported in areas like Lobkov, Pyatikhatki, and Robotyne throughout June and July. On June 4, limited tactical gains were made in western Donetsk Oblast and eastern Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Accelerated Ukrainian offensive actions were reported on June 5, concentrated against the Novodonetsk area in southern Donetsk Oblast. Notable gains were achieved southwest of Velika Novosilka and northwest of Storozhov. Fighting intensified around Neskuch on June 7, ultimately retaken by Ukrainian forces by June 11. On June 11, Makarivka was reclaimed, leading to the death of Major General Sergei Goryashev, Chief of Staff for the 35th Combined Arms Army. The 68th Jaeger Brigade recaptured Blahodatny on June 11, adding to Ukrainian successes. Staromayorsk became a focal point of heavy fighting starting from July 16, eventually recaptured by Ukrainian forces on July 26. In July, General Alexander Tarnovsky highlighted the prevalence of minefields, requiring soldier-led advances over armored units. Repairing a dozen mostly M2 Bradleys faced challenges, while Mastiff armored vehicles from Britain were damaged or destroyed. The 47th Mechanized Brigade in southern Ukraine used older Soviet-era equipment like retrofitted T-64 tanks, but Russian mines compromised these efforts. Even advanced NATO tanks like the Leopard and Challenger suffered damage. Russian forces employed tactics like abandoning trenches filled with remote-controlled mines, complicating the conflict. These dynamics reveal the challenges both sides face in countering extensive mine use. Alexander Siersky led Ukrainian forces in a crucial counteroffensive around Bakhmut. Russian forces, initially on the defensive, posed a significant threat in Luhansk Oblast, diverting Ukrainian attention. By June, Ukrainian advances near Bakhmut intensified, involving multi-directional attacks. Colonel General Siersky outlined the objective of securing dominant positions and pushing the Russians out of Bakhmut's outskirts. The conflict escalated with Russian counterattacks and reinforcements. By September, Ukrainian forces captured the vital heights of Klishchivka and Andrivka, effectively trapping Russian forces in Bakhmut for now. The Dneiper Front faced obstacles, notably the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam, disrupting Ukrainian plans. However, by August, Ukrainian forces crossed the river, engaging in intense battles near Kazaki Lahari. Reports in October indicated further Ukrainian advances. On June 26, pro-Russian sources claimed Ukrainian forces seized the district of Dachai to establish a bridgehead. Fierce fighting ensued, particularly on Antonovsky Island, until July 11, when Russian forces retreated. Ukrainian special forces conducted raids, securing landing sites and observation posts. Tanks crossed the river on August 14, supported by artillery. By October 17 to 18, conflicting reports emerged regarding Ukrainian control of Poima and Pishchinivka villages. The Ukrainian counteroffensive in Crimea and the Black Sea inflicted strategic damage, targeting critical infrastructure. Major bridges connecting Crimea to southern Ukraine, including the Chonhar Railway Bridge, were rendered non-operational. Ukrainian forces achieved key objectives, such as the destruction of a Russian S-400 missile system in Olnovka on August 23. Naval warfare escalated, with successful recapture of offshore rigs on September 11 and strikes on the Sevmorsavad dry dock in Sevastopol on September 13, damaging a Kilo-class submarine and a Ropicha-class landing ship. The Russian Black Sea Fleet's headquarters was targeted on September 22, claiming to have effectively disrupted Russian command. 5 months into the counteroffensive, Ukrainian forces captured 370 kilometers squared of territory, less than half of Russia's earlier gains. Despite successful attacks in Crimea and the Black Sea, reaching the Sea of Azov to split Russian forces remained unfulfilled. Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny described the situation as a stalemate in early November. President Zelensky acknowledged a new phase in the war on November 30, indicating mixed results. As of early December 2023, international media outlets described the Ukrainian counteroffensive as having failed to regain significant territory or meet major strategic objectives. The war has evolved into a complex and dynamic phase, with the situation remaining fluid. Ukraine's armed forces are estimated to have incurred around 90,000 military casualties, with an additional 50,000 wounded during the counteroffensive. Approximately 600 tanks and nearly 1,900 armored vehicles of various classes were destroyed or damaged. Additionally, 747 field artillery guns and mortars, among them 76 U.S.-made M777 artillery systems, were lost. The loss included 26 combat aircraft and 9 helicopters. In contrast, the Russian armed forces are estimated to have incurred approximately 100,000 military casualties. Reports indicate that Russia lost 54 tanks on June 14th alone, with hundreds of vehicles lost in subsequent months. Additionally, over 2,000 artillery pieces were destroyed, along with around 25 aircraft, including helicopters. These statistics underscore the severity and impact of the ongoing conflict. As the 2023 counteroffensive concludes with regrettable setbacks and Ukraine transitions predominantly to a defensive stance, Russia gains momentum, reclaiming territorial gains made during the Ukrainian push. The dynamics on all fronts are shifting, prompting speculation about potential strategies Ukraine might employ in the future. Stay tuned for updates and more in-depth analysis by subscribing and liking our content.